Tennis. After Australian Open campaign, Eala returns to Manila. Manila, fresh off her debut in the main draw of the Australian Open, Filipina tennis star Eala is heading home. Eala on Wednesday afternoon shared a photo from inside an airplane on an Instagram story, with the caption, "Next, Emil." The 20-year-old is expected to compete in the inaugural Philippine Women's Open as a wild card. Her return to the country comes after a busy campaign in the year's first Grand Slam, where Eala made her main draw debut in both singles and doubles. In singles, she bowed out in the opening round after a 3-set battle against world number 100 Alicia Parks, 6-0, 3-6, 2-6, in a match that drew strong Filipino support at court 6. Eala also competed in the women's doubles, teaming up with Brazil's Ingrid Martins. The pair pushed seasoned opponents Magda Linette and Shuko Aoyama to 3 sets before falling, 6-7, 3, 6-2, 3-6, in the first round. Despite the early exits, Eala's Australian Open run was marked by historic firsts, growing international attention, and vocal Filipino crowds that followed her throughout the tournament. Homecoming on hard courts. After the Australian Open campaign, Eala returns to Manila. The roar of Melbourne Park still lingered in Eala's ears long after the last ball was struck. It was the sound of thousands, sometimes cheering, sometimes holding their breath, bearing witness to tennis at its sharpest edge. Under the Australian summer sun, she had chased every point with the same hunger that first carried her from neighborhood courts in Quezon City to the biggest stages of the sport. Now, with the Australian Open campaign behind her, Alex was on her way home. To Manila, where the air is heavier, the traffic louder, and the dreams just as fierce. The plane descended through a quilt of clouds, and the city revealed itself in fragments. Rooftops packed tight like puzzle pieces, the Pasig River winding patiently through concrete, the promise of warmth waiting beyond the airport doors. Melbourne had offered pristine courts and global attention. Manila offered something else entirely, belonging. At Melbourne Park, Alex had walked the long corridors lined with champions' portraits, her footsteps echoing alongside history. Each match was a lesson written in sweat, the brutal honesty of a baseline rally, the razor-thin margins that separate victory from defeat, the mental stillness required when everything inside wants to rush. She had played not only opponents but expectations, of herself, of a nation watching from afar, of a future she is still in the process of becoming. In Manila, expectations feel different. They are louder, warmer, more personal. Here, strangers call her 8 Alex, with familiar pride. Tricycle drivers recognize her name. Young players bring rackets to malls, hoping for a glimpse, a photo, a moment to believe that the path from local courts to Grand Slam arenas is not a myth. Alex's return was not a victory parade, nor a retreat. It was a pause, a breath taken between chapters. The Australian Open had tested her game in ways practice never could. The bounce was quicker, the rallies longer, the nerves more insistent. She learned how the smallest hesitation could be punished, how courage sometimes means hitting through fear rather than avoiding it. These lessons, like souvenirs, traveled home with her. Back on Philippine soil, the courts felt familiar under her shoes. The sun burned a little closer. The air wrapped around her like a damp embrace. Training sessions resumed, but now they carried new textures. Sharper intent on the forehand, greater patience on defense, a quieter confidence in the serve. Melbourne had sharpened her tools. Manila reminded her why she picked them up in the first place. Tennis in the Philippines has always lived in a space between passion and patience. Basketball courts outnumber tennis courts by the hundreds. Yet, in pockets of the city and provinces beyond, tennis persists, early morning drills, cracked hard courts, coaches repeating the same advice with unwavering faith. Alex grew from this soil. Every time she steps back onto a local court, she brings with her proof that the system, imperfect as it is, can still produce excellence. Her Australian Open campaign also carried symbolic weight. Each televised rally was a small widening of the sport's horizon back home. Parents saw possibilities. Young girls saw representation. Tennis, often perceived as distant and elite, felt closer, more reachable. Alex's presence on that stage whispered a powerful message. You can come from here and belong there. Yet, homecoming is not without its challenges. Manila's comforts can soften edges. The pull of family dinners, old friends, familiar routines can blur the ruthless focus required at the highest level. Alex knows this. That is why her return is deliberate, structured. Rest is measured. Training is intentional. The dream is too large to be lulled by nostalgia. Even so, there are moments she allows herself to simply be home. Eating comfort food that tastes like childhood. Laughing in Tagalog without thinking about microphones. Watching the sun set over the city skyline, Racket resting by her side. These moments refuel her in ways no sports drink ever could. The Australian Open was not an ending, it was a checkpoint. A reminder of the distance already traveled and the miles still ahead. Rankings will shift. Draws will change. Wins and losses will trade places. But the core remains, a Filipina athlete carrying her country with her, whether on the blue courts of Melbourne or the sun-baked hard courts of Manila. As Eala laces up again at home, the sound is softer than the roar of a Grand Slam crowd. But it is no less meaningful. It is the sound of roots digging deeper, of ambition being recalibrated, of a journey continuing. From Manila she will leave again soon. Back to the circuit, back to the grind. But for now, the city holds her, proud and expectant. And somewhere on a nearby court, a young player watches her train and thinks, if she can do it, maybe I can too. That, perhaps, is the greatest victory she brings home after the Australian Open.